This is the tale of the in-laws' demand. We build 2 extra rooms in our house for their permanent stay. Pamela, a vibrant woman of 31, had dreamt of building her own house since childhood. The idea of designing and planning a place she could call home filled her with an excitement that surpassed all others. This dream was one she shared with her beloved husband, Samuel. They met 13 years ago, and after 4 years of blissful courtship, they exchanged vows. Their relationship was a tapestry woven with love, laughter, and unwavering happiness. The prospect of owning a home together was a constant topic of conversation, their imaginations running wild as they envisioned every detail and imagined the life they would build within those walls. Over the years, they diligently worked towards their dream, with Samuel as Pamela's unwavering rock, encouraging her every step of the way. One of the things Pamela cherished most about Samuel was his unwavering support, especially against his parents, Janet and Patrick. They seemed to harbor a dislike for Pamela, taking every opportunity to belittle her and make her life difficult. If they needed something, they would demand Pamela's assistance, only to criticize her efforts or declare they no longer wanted it. It was an endless cycle of frustration. To make matters worse, they only visited Pamela on her workdays. Pamela was fortunate to work from home, but Janet and Patrick seemed to believe she was merely lounging around. They refused to acknowledge her work, and Pamela, unwilling to constantly complain to Samuel, kept her struggles to herself. During their visits, Pamela would try to politely excuse herself, explaining she needed to work. However, they would dismiss her pleas, insisting they were simply there to spend time with their precious daughter-in-law. Pamela wouldn't have minded if they simply sat quietly while she worked, but that was never enough. They would call her while she was deeply engrossed in important tasks or during meetings, demanding she drops everything to run errands for them. Often Pamela would simply do what they asked, hoping to quickly return to her work. However, when their visits became a daily occurrence, she could no longer tolerate it. The constant interruptions were affecting her work ethic and causing her immense stress. Finally, she confided in Samuel about everything. He was understandably furious. He couldn't believe his parents were not only ignoring Pamela's work, but also treating her like a servant. He promised her he would confront them and put a stop to their behavior. Pamela was incredibly grateful. Confrontation, especially with family, was something she desperately avoided. She was relieved that Samuel was willing to stand up for her and ensure she was treated with respect. The next day, Samuel and Pamela went to his parents' house, where he bravely confronted them. "Oh, hi, sweetheart. Why did you come over?" Janet asked, her tone laced with surprise. "Because I need to talk to you guys about something important," Samuel replied firmly. "Oh, why is Pamela here?" Patrick added, his voice tinged with confusion. "I brought Pamela with me because we need to address the way you've been treating her," Samuel explained. "What do you mean? We just want to spend time with her. There's no harm in that," Janet insisted, her voice rising slightly. "Mom, it's not about spending time with her. You've been disregarding her work and treating her like a servant. That's not fair," Samuel stated, his voice calm but unwavering. "Come on, it's all in good fun. We didn't mean any harm," Patrick responded defensively. "It's not fun for Pamela when it affects her work and well-being. From now on, you need to respect her work hours. You can see her after work or on weekends," Samuel declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Fine, if that's what it takes," Janet reluctantly agreed. "Okay, we'll back off, but we didn't think it was such a big deal," Patrick mumbled defensively. "It is a big deal to Pamela, and that's what matters. If you can't respect her boundaries, you might lose contact with both of us. Please understand and change your behavior," Samuel concluded, his voice firm but kind. For a while, Pamela enjoyed a period of peace, free from the constant interruptions. She could fully focus on her work without the nagging anxiety of their unwanted presence. Finally, she felt a sense of relief, knowing that Samuel had stood up for her. They both believed the intrusive visits were over, and they began to settle into a newfound sense of normalcy. However, their respite proved short-lived. Soon, Janet and Patrick started coming over even more frequently, their visits becoming a constant source of frustration. Pamela felt like Samuel had already done everything he could, and confronting them again wouldn't teach them anything or make them stop. She decided to take a stand. One day when they arrived, Pamela firmly told them she needed to work. She invited them inside and instructed them not to disturb her. She then retreated to her room and locked the door, determined to prevent any potential tantrums. Her heart raced as she took this bold step, but to her surprise, they didn't even try to interrupt her. When it was time for Pamela to log off, she went downstairs only to find the house empty. While she was relieved, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The fact that Samuel's parents were ignoring her didn't feel like a victory. "Samuel, we can't believe how disrespectful your wife is acting. She should be spending more time with us, not always holed up in her room." "Yeah, we're family after all. She owes us that much," Patrick said, his voice dripping with resentment. "You've got it all wrong. Pamela is not being disrespectful. She's dedicated to her work because we need to be financially stable. But can't you take some time off for your family? We miss spending time with her," Janet added, her voice laced with a hint of desperation. "Of course, she values family time, but she also has her career, and it's important to her. You might not know this, but she makes double my salary and we mostly rely on her income," Samuel stated calmly. "Double your salary?" "Yes, and that's why I won't tolerate any more interruptions. Pamela's work is important, and if you can't respect that, I will make you guys pay for whatever time you made Pamela waste on you. You can't do that." "Well, your parents, you don't want to try me. We have goals we want to achieve, and I will make you pay for it if you come our way," Samuel said, his voice hardening with determination. "Fine, whatever. We won't disturb you anymore," Patrick mumbled, his voice subdued. Surprisingly, they did stop coming over as often. It was a turning point, a small victory in their struggle for the freedom they craved. Samuel and Pamela worked hard, saving every penny to build their dream home. Pamela was consumed with excitement, pouring her heart and soul into designing their future, while Samuel handled the technical aspects. Finally, her lifelong dream was coming true. One evening during dinner, Janet and Patrick dropped a bombshell. "We expect 2 more rooms in your new house because we are going to live with the 2 of you," Janet declared, her voice dripping with entitlement. "Excuse me, who gave you the right to make that decision without even asking us?" Samuel demanded, his voice laced with anger. "We decided to do it so that you could no longer ignore us. This is completely disrespectful. You can't just barge into our lives like this. We've been tolerating your disrespectfulness for months now, Samuel. It's time you start showing us some respect as your parents. Respect is a two-way street. We deserve the same respect from you," Janet retorted, her voice rising in indignation. "We won't allow you to control our lives like this. It's not fair to us. We are your parents, and we have a right to be with you," Patrick added, his voice echoing Janet's sentiment. "Yes, you have a right to be a part of our lives, but you can't just impose yourselves on us without our consent. We're not backing down. We want to be with you, and that's final," Janet declared, her voice laced with a chilling finality. Samuel was about to explode, his fists clenched, his face flushed with anger. Pamela quickly reached out and placed a calming hand on his arm. She forced a smile, unwilling to let their plan derail their dreams. "I will build the extra rooms," she said, her voice betraying a hint of resignation. Janet and Patrick smirked, believing they had won, but Pamela had a plan. She was determined to stand up for her happiness and their future together. Later that night, after their parents had left, Samuel asked Pamela why she had promised to build extra rooms. "I couldn't stand their entitlement anymore. I had a plan to show them they couldn't just intrude in our lives," Pamela explained, her voice firm with determination. "And what was your plan?" Samuel asked, his curiosity piqued. "Well, I couldn't just build 2 more rooms, so I decided to build 4 more rooms instead," Pamela replied, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "4 more rooms? Have you hit your head or something?" Samuel asked, his voice laced with amusement. "No, I'm serious. We have enough money to add another story to the house. If they think it's okay to stay with us, then my parents should be able to stay too," Pamela explained, a sly smile playing on her lips. "Oh, I see where you're going with this now. That's pretty clever. I never would have thought of that," Samuel said, his eyes widening with admiration. "It would be a perfect way to make them understand our boundaries. You're amazing, you know that. I never would have thought of that," he added, his voice filled with genuine awe. "Well, that's why you have me. Together we can handle anything that comes our way, that's for sure. Now let me tell you about my parents. Pamela said, her voice softening as she began to recount the story of her own family. Pamela's parents were what society considered hippies, free-spirited and open about everything. Samuel's parents couldn't stand them, and whenever there was a family event, they would avoid Pamela's parents like they were running from a fire. Pamela knew that if her parents lived with Samuel's parents, they would want to move out as quickly as possible. The thought of putting Samuel's parents in their place amused Samuel, and he laughed, fully on board with Pamela's plan. It was the perfect way to show them that they couldn't just intrude on their lives without consequences. Pamela was determined to stand up for herself and Samuel, ensuring they could finally enjoy the peace and happiness they deserved in their new home. As their house slowly took shape over the next year, Pamela decided to play a little trick on Samuel's parents. She confided in her parents about how Samuel's parents were recently interested in the spiritual world, knowing it would pique their curiosity. "You know what I found out the other day from Janet?" Pamela's mother asked, her voice filled with excitement. "What, dear?" her father replied, his interest piqued. "She told me that she and Patrick had begun looking into the spiritual world. She kept talking about how fascinating it all was. She was talking about it for a while, you know," Pamela's mother explained, her voice filled with a mix of amusement and disbelief. "You know, it made me think of you guys," she added, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Oh, baby, that's super cool, though. I didn't think that Patrick or Janet would ever be spiritual people, but that's awesome," Pamela's father said, his voice filled with genuine surprise. "Yeah, I'll probably have to hear a lot more about it, though," Pamela's mother said, her voice laced with a hint of playful anticipation. "What do you mean?" her father asked, his curiosity piqued. "Well, they'll be staying with us in our new house once it's ready," Pamela's mother explained, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "They'll be staying with you? That's wonderful. We could easily meet them and introduce them to our community," Pamela's father said, his voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. "I'm glad you're excited about it because there are extra rooms. You can stay with us and get to know them better," Pamela's mother said, her voice filled with a mischievous glint. "Really? That's fantastic news. We'd love to stay with you and be a part of this experience," Pamela's father said, his voice overflowing with excitement. "Great! We can make all the arrangements once the house is ready. It's going to be an interesting time, and I think you'll get along well," Pamela's mother said, her voice filled with a mischievous twinkle. "We can't wait to welcome all of his parents and show them around," Pamela's father added, his voice echoing his wife's enthusiasm. "Thank you for inviting us, dear," Pamela's mother said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You're welcome, Mom and Dad. It'll be a memorable time for all of us," Pamela said, her voice filled with a mix of anticipation and amusement. "Let's keep this as a surprise for Samuel's parents until they move in," Pamela's mother suggested, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Pamela didn't tell Janet and Patrick about the plan. She simply invited them to move in once the house was finished. When they arrived, they seemed smug, unaware of the elaborate plan that was about to unfold. Little did they know that Samuel and Pamela had prepared contracts for them. The contracts contained strict rules, such as staying on the first floor for maintenance or leaving the house by a certain time. Janet and Patrick signed the contracts without reading the fine print, their eagerness to move in overshadowing any sense of caution. Pamela showed them their rooms on the first floor, but she made sure her parents didn't arrive at the same time. She wanted to keep them apart for now, to see how things played out. It was her way of showing Janet and Patrick that they couldn't just waltz into their lives without consequences. She craved peace and happiness in their new home, and this was her plan to ensure it. After a peaceful camping trip, Samuel and Pamela returned home to find Samuel's parents in a state of utter distress. They were furious that Pamela had invited her parents to live with them. "How dare you invite your parents to live with us? We had to endure all their weirdness for the past week, and we couldn't even complain to you and Samuel," Janet exclaimed, her voice dripping with resentment. "What do you mean by weirdness?" Pamela asked, her voice calm but firm. "They played the tambourine, rang bells, and chanted marches at 2 a.m. We couldn't sleep properly the entire week," Patrick added, his voice laced with a hint of desperation. "Well, that's part of their spiritual practices. It shouldn't be a problem," Pamela said, her voice calm and unwavering. "They also burnt herbal incense and sage, making our eyes water and causing us to sneeze and wheeze," Janet added, her voice laced with a hint of indignation. "Why didn't you ask them to compromise?" Pamela asked, her voice calm but firm. "We tried, but they threw a tantrum and accused us of being intolerant," Patrick said, his voice filled with a hint of frustration. "You chose to stay here knowing their lifestyle. You have to face the consequences," Pamela stated, her voice calm and unwavering. "Exactly. And if you can't tolerate Alex's parents and respect the contract, you're free to leave," Samuel added, his voice firm but kind. "Oh, now you're just selfish, Pamela. You only care about the contract because it benefits you," Janet retorted, her voice laced with a hint of bitterness. "That's not true. You're the ones breaching the contract by confronting us downstairs. We clearly stated you're not allowed to leave the upper floor under any circumstances," Samuel said, his voice rising slightly. He opened a drawer and took out the contract, slamming it in front of them. "If you had read it seriously, you'd know your actions are against the agreement. You have a choice. Either go back upstairs and tolerate Alex's parents, or leave our house and our lives forever," Samuel declared, his voice firm and unwavering. "You're being manipulated by Pamela to embarrass and endanger us," Patrick said, his voice filled with a hint of desperation. "No, I see how badly you're treating Pamela. I won't let the mother of my child go through this difficulty," Samuel said, his voice filled with fierce protectiveness. Janet and Patrick looked shocked when Samuel mentioned that Pamela was the mother of his child. They asked if she was pregnant, and Pamela nodded. Their faces lit up with joy, and they congratulated and hugged her. Pamela was caught completely off guard. One minute they were arguing, and the next they were hugging. She didn't know how to feel, and honestly, she didn't care enough to figure it out. She just wanted them out of her house. They wanted the same thing, but not for the reasons Pamela thought. They wanted her parents out, even more so now. Pamela, wanting to agitate them further, decided to play a dangerous game. "Pamela, please ask your parents to leave so we can be part of our grandchild's life in peace and support you during your pregnancy," Janet said, her voice laced with a desperate plea. "Our child will follow the same lifestyle as my parents, and I believe they'll benefit from their presence," Pamela said, her voice filled with a mischievous glint. "What? You can't be serious," Patrick exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief. "I am. It's important for our child to be raised in an environment that respects our beliefs," Pamela replied, her voice firm and unwavering. "Well, if you don't make them leave, we'll remove you, Samuel, and the child from our will," Janet threatened, her voice filled with a chilling coldness. "That's your choice, but you should know that we know all about your financial struggles. It would be a lot smarter for you to use your assets to support yourselves," Samuel said, his voice laced with a hint of sarcasm. "You can't talk to us like that," Janet said, her voice rising in anger. "Yes, I can. You're standing in our house and we get to speak to you however we want. We need you to leave, that's it. No more discussions," Samuel declared, his voice firm and unwavering. Enough was enough. Samuel and Pamela served Janet and Patrick an eviction notice, giving them 15 days to leave. They tried to convince them to stay, but Pamela knew better. She reminded them that legal fights would cost them more, and that leaving was the best option for them. Politely but firmly, they escorted them out of the house and they left, defeated and humiliated. Later, Pamela's parents also moved out. Their plan to connect with Samuel's parents had backfired spectacularly. Pamela was sad, but she knew it was for the best. With both sets of parents gone, Samuel and Pamela finally had the peace they deserved. They enjoyed being at home without interruptions or bullying from Samuel's parents. It felt amazing to have their space back. Over time, Samuel's parents tried to reach out, but the damage was done. Samuel and Pamela stood strong, knowing their choice was right for their family. As their child grew inside Pamela, they created a happy home. They prepared the nursery together, eagerly awaiting their little one. Samuel was a fantastic partner, supporting Pamela every step of the way. Their love grew stronger through the challenges they faced, and they learned invaluable lessons about setting boundaries and standing up for themselves. Their home became a haven, a place where they could be themselves, free from the intrusions of others. Samuel and Pamela cherished peaceful moments, cooking, reading, and walking without their parents around. They focused on their family life, a life that had taught them to protect their happiness and well-being. They refused to let anyone control them, and they created a loving haven for their family. With each passing day, their bond grew stronger, and they knew that together they could face anything. Their future was bright, filled with the promise of love, laughter, and the joy of building a life together, free from the shadows of their past. Let's conclude the story shortly. The eviction of Samuel's parents marked a new chapter in Pamela and Samuel's lives. They finally had the peace and privacy they craved, allowing their love to flourish and their dream home to become a sanctuary. As Pamela's pregnancy progressed, they built a loving and nurturing environment for their child, free from the intrusions of overbearing family members. Their bond grew stronger, their shared experiences forging an unbreakable connection. Though Samuel's parents occasionally reached out, the damage was irreparable. They had learned a valuable lesson. Setting boundaries and standing up for themselves was essential for their happiness. Their home, once a battleground, became a haven of love and laughter, a testament to their resilience and the strength of their bond. Pamela and Samuel, with their little one by their side, embraced the future with open hearts and unwavering confidence, knowing that together they could overcome any obstacle and build a life filled with joy and fulfillment. Life was a new chapter, filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. And that, my friends, is where our story ends. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.